Marketer of the Day, episode 577, Work Hero, Scratch Your Own Itch. Innovate when there is no other option. Be persistent and create freedom with Kevin Koskella.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're chatting with Kevin Koskella from useworkhero.com, and Kevin runs this startup called Work Hero, where you can get an unlimited amount of graphics made, and Kevin is also a guy who teaches triathletes. He's a former competitive swimmer, so we have lots of interesting things to talk about. How are things, Kevin?
Yeah, great, Robert. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Glad to have you. So, I guess I'll just jump in as far as the Work Hero stuff. I've heard of this concept. I've seen a few companies like this where basically, and correct me if I'm wrong here, someone can go to you and pay a flat monthly fee and then say, just keep generating graphics for me, keep generating the social media graphics for Pinterest, Instagram, keep cranking out the t-shirts designs for Amazon merch. Is that on the right track?
Yeah, you've got it right. We also do WordPress technical fixes as well. So it's not just the graphic design, but it's also anything to do with WordPress that people need help on. So, and it is unlimited. We can do as whatever tasks you have, we'll take care of them. And so we ask for people to send 3 at a time, and then we just do one by one. So, it's a pretty good deal for somebody that's looking to outsource that part of their business. They don't want to be dealing with all the headaches that go along with managing WordPress. And then also if you're not a designer, to be able to get the designs and like you mentioned, some of the social media designs, people have ebooks to do, and then creating landing pages and things like that, it just takes up a lot of your time as a business owner that unless that's your passion, it's kind of it doesn't make sense to do yourself.
Yeah, I completely agree that you're not going to get the time back if you waste 3 weeks making that graphic for your book cover or for your landing page. And then likewise, as far as the WordPress fixes, that part really interests me because, I'm sure you've probably heard this as well. Some people say, I really like WordPress and I want to have this theme, or I want to have this plugin, I want to have this functionality, but I'm afraid to use it because I'm worried that I'll break it or I'll get hacked. And so I'm really interested to jump into the WordPress fixes, if that's okay. So when people use Work Hero to fix things with WordPress, do you know off the top of your head, like what are the maybe top 1 or 2 most common technical tasks that you guys fix?
Sorry, you're cutting out a little bit. I heard most of that question, but it sort of dropped at the end.
Oh, sorry about that. I was asking, do you know what are the most common top 1 or 2 WordPress tasks you guys fix?
Yeah, it's a lot of times it comes down to not the most complex things, but just things that are headaches, like managing plugins. As you know, plugins can cause all kinds of problems, and people don't know what to do there. So then they come to us, and we can help fix that. And then just a lot of times it also involves things that people may be able to Google around and figure out sort of how to do it, but they're not comfortable actually doing it and potentially wrecking something with the rest of their site. So and that could be anything from like a plugin installation or a pixel installation. That's another one that comes up a lot. And even just those small edits that you want to do but don't want to take that risk of screwing up your whole site.
Yeah, that's awesome because there's that thing out there called WordPress VIP, and whenever I think to myself, well, do I charge enough? Or whenever I need a little bit of a boost in my confidence, I go and look on the page for WordPress VIP that hosts places like like CBS Atlanta, CBS Nashville, places like that, and they charge something like $4,000 or $5,000 to install one plugin. So I'm thinking, well, anything less expensive than that is definitely worthwhile. And so at what point do you draw the line? Like you say, technical fixes include even a pixel installation or small edits or a plugin installation. But when is a technical task outside the scope of what you guys do?
Yeah, that's a good question. We pretty much will do what people ask, and I haven't yet come across something that's like out of our range. I mean, we won't build a website. Like if someone says, can you build a website for us? That's not something we do. Like there's plenty of web designers out there that we can refer to, but it's people that already have a WordPress website that have issues. And so that hasn't come up yet. Can you think of some examples of things that you think are probably going to be so big that we'd have to, really examine it?
I mean, maybe if someone wants help increasing maybe load time, or if there are maybe weird characters across a lot of pages on a site, is that still covered?
Oh yeah, that's definitely still covered. And like the increasing load time, and that's pretty common. That is something that people need. And it's sometimes we have to break it down into steps, into tasks. So it may be a project that we say, okay, can we just break it down into more like bite-sized chunks instead of like, let's do this whole big project and it's going to take 3 days or something like that, because we can't really quote a time. We can't say, okay, we'll do this in 4.5 hours or something like that. So, but it's much easier if we have it into those bite-sized chunks.
Okay, fair enough. And so it's easier if you guys have it in those bite-sized chunks. And then, I'm not sure I understood you there as far as turnaround time. Like, do you promise something will get done in a certain amount of time, or is it just whenever it gets done?
No, we don't actually quote any sort of timeline, because that gets really tricky, because it's hard to really estimate and say, I'm sure you've run across this too. Like, it's hard to say this will be done in 6 hours, and then you realize as the project is going, you realize it's going to be a lot more than that. So we try to turn around in a day, depending on the complexity of the task. And we always give people updates as to what's going on. So if it's going on longer than a day, then we'll let them know and say, okay, we're still working on this, and we'll get back to you with as soon as we have any questions, or when it's finished.
Okay, great. Yeah, and this is a service that I think a lot of people need. And there was one that I liked, but then they switched things up and said that you have to be on a particular host in order for them to support you. And I thought, oh, that really limits themselves. So do you guys, will you log into any WordPress site, any web host?
Yeah, we don't limit the host at all. We don't have any limitation there. I'm wondering why they did that, if they're maybe an affiliate for that host,
Or, who knows? Maybe an affiliate, or maybe just like streamlining things on their end. Or had more work than they can handle. But that's good news for you and your team, because that means that you get all the people that they missed. And so, right. So then when I'm thinking about, okay, as far as the things that you cover, do you handle migrating to SSL, and do you handle GDPR compliance?
We do handle the SSL. GDPR compliance is pretty new, and I actually, the little that I know about it, I don't think it's as complex as people are making it out to be. So if somebody has something there, we could totally take a look at it and do whatever they want to do. But I'm not going to, our team isn't going to interpret it and try to figure out what is GDPR saying in this one instance or whatever. So if somebody has specific things that they need done along those lines, then that's no problem.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so they can't just say, here, make it GDPR compliant. They have to say, okay, I want you to make these specific changes, and then you'll do those changes.
Right, exactly. It works much better that way, because we may not be able to interpret it the way they want us to. So it makes it easier if we can just get clear instructions there. Yeah,
saves on the guesswork. And then if someone says, well, my site has been just completely hacked and defaced and needs cleaning and needs scrubbing, is that still something you guys do?
Oh yeah, we'll clean things up. We always start to, I didn't mention this, we always start with backing up the site of the customer that we're working with, so that if anything goes wrong for any reason, we still have the backup. But we definitely work on cleaning things up and making things work the way they should.
Okay, great. And then, so along those lines, you mentioned backing up the site. Do you provide any sort of ongoing monthly maintenance, like getting the backups going and all that, or is that something different?
Yeah, that's actually part of, we have a monthly plan. So the way the monthly plan works, you do get that included with it. So you will get the monthly backups. And And then you can send in with that monthly plan, you can send in as many tasks as you need for that site. And we do up to 3 websites for our monthly, and we're actually expanding that a little bit because we've had requests for more than 3 sites. So if somebody wants to sign up and get like, let's say 5 sites, then they can do that with our annual plan. So it's the same kind of thing, but it's just you pay upfront for the year.
Super cool. And since we're talking about monthly and yearly plans, what sorts of price points are we talking here?
Yeah, and so this might change because obviously it's a podcast and it's going to be up in perpetuity. But right now, and this is early July of 2018, it's $247 a month. But we do also offer a 14-day free trial. So you can try us out and see if you like the work and then decide if you want to keep going or not. But it's $247 a month, straight up flat fee. That's what most people are doing. We have an annual plan, like I mentioned. You get 2 additional websites for that because you get the 3 websites with the monthly, and then you get 2 additional ones for the annual plan, and it works out to about $197, I think, a month.
Okay, super cool. Yeah, I mean, just to save an hour or 2 per week on all those technical frustrations, and like you said, doing the Google search, and then it might not apply exactly, or it might be advice from years ago and trying to apply that. That's, I mean, almost a no-brainer there.
Yeah, exactly. That's happened so many times.
Right. Well, super great. So now that we kind of have heard about your company and what you're all about, I want to switch gears and hear what you're all about. So we heard in your bio that you were a competitive swimmer. You help out with triathletes. So, I mean, what's your deal? What do you have going on personally?
Yeah, so back in the day, I used to be a competitive swimmer, and then finished up that with school and everything, and then started working corporate jobs, and really didn't fit in with the corporate world at all. Like it was just not a good fit for me, and I got burned out, and then I ended up getting laid off at one point, and I thought about getting another job, and it felt completely wrong. So I actually started, instead of getting like a corporate job doing sales and marketing like I'd been doing, I went back and I started doing swim coaching, because that's the thing that I did for so many years of my life, and I never really like worked in that area. I just always was like the thing that I competed in. And so I started coaching swimming, and it was pretty fun. I really enjoyed it. I started working with like kind of all different age groups, but I ended up landing on coaching adult swimmers that were training for triathlons. So that's swim, bike, run, and these events. And it's mostly adults that are doing them. So that's who I ended up just kind of randomly working with. And I was doing at that time, I was doing some triathlons myself. So it was kind of like right in line with what I was wanting to do. So I was doing this, and so I started a swim lesson business for adults, like anyone 18 and over. And I had everything from people that were learning to swim, like just from like the very beginning, to competitive triathletes. So that actually was fun and it was rewarding, but the money really wasn't there because I had to exchange my time for money. So I didn't like that aspect of it, because I would go out and coach like 3 or 4 lessons and I'd be wiped out. And I'm like, and what could I really charge for that? I mean, at the beginning, I think I was charging like $30 a lesson. And then I started upping my price a little bit. But even at the maxed out price, I was still like exhausting myself and not really making enough money. And so I ended up finding out about internet marketing and internet business. So I started a website. I outsourced that because I didn't know anything about how to create a website. So got a website up, and then at first I just used it for my swim lesson business and sort of as an advertising piece. And then eventually I realized that most of the people coming to me were triathletes, and there was sort of a niche out there, like swimming for triathlon was this niche. So I dug into that and found out that there wasn't really anybody online that was dominating that niche. I mean, there was a few people that were doing some things, but they sort of didn't have much of a web presence. So I just went into that and I created an ebook. Well, I first created a sheet, I think it was a doc file or just a plain PDF. And I was selling that on my website and made a few sales, and that just got me really excited about, okay, I can actually make money online. So I can actually do this stuff that I love, but I don't have to worry about like having to be there all the time because I can make sales at any time of the day or night. So that's what got me started. And then I turned that into an ebook, which I was able to raise the price, and then I started making some more serious sales. And then eventually I made a DVD. I created a DVD, which is like kind of like the thing that it was needed out there for swimming. You're not going to learn a whole lot from just reading a book, but with the video, that took it to a new level. So that site is tryswimcoach.com, and I've been running that since like 2005. And it's still, and now it's changed a little bit because now I have a membership site. So it went from, once DVDs kind of faded away and nobody really cared to buy them anymore, I turned it into a membership site, and now it's I've got people that are joining all the time, and they have the option of either just doing the annual plan, which is $87 or $89, or they can do the annual or do the monthly, which gets them access to coaches, and that's an additional $9.97 a month. So it's kind of a 2-level site. And then they've got access to all kinds of information about how to train for a triathlon swim, and it's far beyond what I ever did with the DVD. So it's a great deal. And now I've got a lot of that business outsourced, so I can have time to do other things.
Super cool. So there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. And what I heard a lot of in that whole story is, well, I mean, two things come to mind. One is that in a lot of ways you scratch your own itch, and then you also like kind of maxed out the level you were on until you had almost no choice but to go into the next level. Like you said, well, I'm going to teach swim coaching because that's my skill and that's what I'm good at. But then, once that was kind of not really doable, you said, well, let me niche down. But there's no way to really jump to the niche at first, right? You have to kind of try things out and experiment and debug the system, so to speak. So then you moved into the triathlons, and that led you to, you said, well, I'm kind of maxed out again here because now I need more attention on my website, on my stuff. So now you need to outsource the website, and then that led to the information products. And then you said, well, I'm not going to just jump in and make this whole crazy membership site, because if I did, I'd give up before I started because that's just way too many moving parts. But you said, I'm going to make it simple. I'll give away the Word doc, the PDF sheet, and then by just keeping it small and simple and manageable and doable and minimum viable product and all that fun stuff, then you made those first initial sales and you said, okay, well, now I've proven this can make money. There's something here. Move it up to the ebook, move it up to the DVD, move it up to the membership site. Mm-hmm. And I just love that journey that you went on, and I love that way of thinking, how you don't let things get too big right out of the gate. You say, here's my goal, here's the gap in the marketplace that has not been filled, here is the problem I want to solve for people, and then I'll go off on this trajectory, and then based on that customer feedback, based on what seems to be too much work for not a lot of money versus the thing that's really hot that really brings in the money, then I'll kind of adjust to what that is. So it's like just kind of very manageable, very one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly. And the way you put it, it sounds a lot more smooth than it actually went along the years. But it is like that. The one thing that happened when I went from just having an ebook to having a DVD, that was like a huge jump. And all of a sudden people were really interested in the site and the product and everything. But going from having a DVD, which is a physical, tangible item, to going to a membership site, that was a tricky transition because, first of all, my audience they're not like young, super young. I've got a lot of people that are over 50 that, doing triathlons. And a lot of that is because they kind of get into the sport late in life and they want to get in shape and they enter races and then they get addicted to it. So I have a little bit older of a crowd. And so the DVD thing went fine. But when I switched over to a membership site, there was my initial launch of that was a complete flop, and I was shocked because I thought this is way better than what I've done. This has got so much more information, and it's so much easier to access. But people were not ready for it. They were we had so many emails saying, "So when does my shipment arrive?" Even though we tried to clearly explain that this is a membership site. You log in, you get all your details online. It's all digital. There's nothing to be shipped. And then we still get all these questions of people. I don't understand. I thought I ordered something. I thought I ordered a DVD. And it's like, so that was a little bit of time. I mean, it took a little bit of time to transition over till finally people started getting it. It's like, oh, okay, now we don't get any of those complaints, or very rarely do we get a complaint like that. So, but yeah, I think that it takes some patience, and it takes a lot of really understanding your market to get through that kind of thing.
Yeah, and once again, you had to debug the system. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen this too. A lot of people, they'll put in all that work, all that time, all that money into the membership site, and then they'll do the launch. And I mean, none of our launches go the way we want them to go, right? You always have to course correct, but we see so many people, they'll do all the work, they'll do the launch, and it just totally doesn't work at all, and they'll give up right then and there. And I'm thinking, but that's like attempt number 1 of 10. Like if you keep adjusting and you honestly make it work, and you keep trying it again and again, and eventually it doesn't work, well, then maybe there's something to that. But I mean, there's a million like little things that you might have done wrong, that you might just have to fix in the sales letter, or get more affiliates, or get more traffic, or have a less confusing offer, or increase the price point. I mean, there's a lot of little things that can be changed. But I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people, they give up right then and there, and it's so frustrating. So, I mean, do you think that, is there something special about you and your mindset and your attitude that made you keep going and adjust instead of giving up like a lot of people do?
Yeah, yes and no. I don't think I'm smarter than, a lot of people out there. I think there's a lot of really smart marketers that I've learned a lot from, but for me, it's the looking back and seeing what are the options here. So I've made myself unemployable. I don't remember how to do a resume. I haven't had a resume in like 12 years. So I don't even know what that's like. And I wouldn't know how to get a job in the corporate world, even if I had to. I don't know what I'd be doing. Like maybe I'd be working at Starbucks or something. I'm not really sure. So I just look at the options and I go, this is the only thing that I want to do is have a business that creates some level of freedom. And so I just, that's really the motivator, is that looking back and seeing that there's nothing else that I could possibly do in terms of my mindset. Like, I'm sure I could survive somehow if the internet went away or something, but I don't like that prospect. And it kind of terrifies me to have the freedom that I've built be taken away, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, sometimes, and hopefully not too often, but every now and then, sometimes maybe late at night, I have similar thoughts. I think, well, geez, what would I do if all this went away? Or what would I do if membership sites or websites or podcasting went away? And I guess the answer for guys like you and me is we'd figure some other type of business out to build, because, I mean, just going in and clocking a 9 to 5, I mean, it's great for what it is, right? It's great for if you're young. It's great for if you're trying to make ends meet. It's great for building up that nest egg. But to just live decades and decades of that, of just making someone else rich, of following someone else's orders, I mean, that sounds pretty miserable to me.
Yeah, and I just watched that movie Office Space?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a behind the scenes on YouTube. There was a little like 30-minute show on it. I just watched that, and it just totally reminded me. And they were talking about how they connected with what people are actually going through in these corporate jobs in the corporate world, and these characters that were in the movie were so similar to people that I've worked with. And I guess that was the feedback they got from almost everybody. It was like, wow, how did you know that that's how my work is? And it's like, yeah, really, it was a nice reminder that, wow, I couldn't survive in that world anymore.
But at least for me, it was like being in the 9 to 5. I was only in a 9 to 5 for 3 years, but it was a good motivator for at least to give it a shot, and to have something to push me into something better. I mean, like they gave me the choice of either being in the middle of a room with people on all sides of me, or being kind of pushed back into just way down this hallway and way in the middle of nowhere. And I chose in the middle of nowhere. And again, for what it was good, because I picked up a lot of computer programming skills, and I did some other projects on the side. So it was really great to have, that cushion. I mean, during that time, I bought a house, bought a car, did all those different things, and then had made the transition to entrepreneurship a lot less scary. It's unfortunate that you had to get laid off, but also it also would have been unfortunate if I had been stuck at that day job for 10 years or even longer. So if someone out there is kind of listening to this podcast and are thinking, I could be doing a lot better. I could be taking that leap into entrepreneurship and building a company, building a team. Do you have any advice for that sort of person out there?
Yeah, I guess it depends on where they're coming from. I mean, if they're right now working a job that they don't like, I really think that building something on the side is a great way to go. I'm a little bit reckless, and I tend to just quit. Like I used to just quit jobs and just hope something would come up. But I think that's not the greatest way to go, at least for most people. The most productive I think I was early on was when I had 2 part-time jobs and I was building my business. So I was I'd go to one job in the morning, I'd have a 3-hour break, and then I'd go to the other job in the afternoon. And the 3-hour break, I knew that I had to get work done. There was no choice. I had to do my work. So I would get solid work done in those 2 or 3 hours. And so I think that starting something on the side it may be a little bit much to take on when you're working 8 or 9 hours a day at a company, but it can force you to really get what you need to get done and not waste any time. Is that sometimes when you have all day to do something, you end up not getting as much done because you're in your mind, you're thinking, well, I got 8-10 hours to do this. So you can spread that work out. But if you only have 2 or 3 hours, then you can be super efficient. And I've read stories and I've known people that have gotten so much done while they're working. And I remember this guy that was a doctor, medical doctor. He was working like typical doctors. He was working a lot of hours, 12 hours a day. And he had kids and he wasn't able to see his kids much. And he was just miserable. He just hated it. But he started getting into internet marketing and just building these little information products businesses. And he started waking up at 4 a.m. because his shift started at 5:30 or something. So he'd work an hour in the morning, and then he would get just whatever done then. And within a few months, you add up that hour every day, he had a little business going. And then that motivated him to take it to the next level and the next level. And then pretty soon he was able to quit his job as a doctor and just focus on internet business. So I think just start something on the side and devote a little bit of time or as much time as you can, and then watch it build as you learn. And you can just learn one step at a time. There's no hurry, and you're still getting your paycheck. And I think that's an awesome way to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's really inspiring. You think an hour a day, that's 365 days a year. That's 8 or 9 weeks of full-time effort, and probably even more, because if you spent 10 hours a week on something, you'd have to wait around, or you wouldn't be as productive. So I mean, an hour a day, that's 365 hours per year. I mean, that's 2 solid months just about of devoting to your project, to your information product, to building that business. And I mean, you're so right about that whole Pareto principle thing, right? If you give yourself 8 hours to do something, then it'll just balloon up to the whole 8 hours. If you only have that 1 hour, then you'll find a way to get it done in some form in that 1 hour. And I mean, I think back to that sort of idea anytime I'm super late on something. I'm in a club called Toastmasters where we just kind of go in and give presentations, and just literally last night this guy presented about triathlons. So I think it's really cool that we're talking about that today. But I had to present, and I was kind of putting my speech together at the last minute, the same day, a few hours before, and I was a little stressed about it. But then I thought to myself, well, when else would I have done it? If you know what I mean? If my speech was next week instead of this week, I'd wait a whole week and I'd waste all this time thinking about it. So sometimes that thing that looks like it's a disadvantage is actually a good advantage, right? If you're if you're got a deadline in front of you, if it's a last minute, if you're stressed out, if you have no other options, if your time is limited, these are all things that can push you to where you want to go. And sometimes having that safety net, sometimes having less stress is not a good thing, because if you didn't have to worry about money, if you could just live with your parents or crash on a friend's couch forever, then you wouldn't necessarily be motivated to make this whole thing work. So there's definitely some inspiring stuff and some interesting lessons in there. So if people heard our conversation today and they say, geez, this Kevin guy, he's got it all figured out, I want to hear more about him and what he's going on, and Work Hero sounds amazing as well, where can and where should people go right now?
Yeah, sure. I have a podcast myself, actually. It's called Freedom Lovin'. So it's like loving without the G at the end, freedomlovin.com. You can check out my podcast there. I talk about freedom and travel and sometimes building businesses and sort of a variety show. But Work Hero is useworkhero.com. If you want to try our 14-day free trial, we'd be happy to take on your annoying tasks and your designs and everything you have. So that's pretty much it. And if you want to check out the other site, it's tryswimcoach.com.
Super great. So 3 really wonderful resources there. First of all, freedomlovin.com. And that's a podcast. And, I need to get into listening to more podcasts like yours, just to have on in the background, to hear more about how people think, to hear about what people have going on, and especially that travel aspect, because that's what it's all about, right? Like you mentioned earlier about how when you went from the tryswimcoach.com business into the Work Hero, that you wanted to have more passive income, you wanted to delegate more. And so, hearing about travel and hearing about what people have built helps to keep us all inspired. And it's a heck of a lot more useful than watching the same old episode of Friends for the 6th time. Might as well just listen to a podcast that makes you better. So freedomlovin.com is that podcast about travel and freedom and building a business, which sounds excellent. And then useworkhero.com is that service where if the thought of creating graphics annoys the heck out of you, if the thought of fixing up all the things with WordPress and converting to SSL and fixing hacked sites and speeding up sites and dealing with plugins, dealing with updates and backups, if all that sounds like something that is just the bane of your existence, then maybe throw a tiny bit of money at the problem, so that way you don't spend all week or all month figuring out your WordPress site. So do yourself a favor, go to useworkhero.com. That's useworkhero.com. Useworkhero.com, and we'll see you there, as well as we'll see you there as a subscriber to the freedomlovin.com podcast. So thanks so much, Kevin, for stopping by and sharing some business tips and telling us what we need to do about delegating our WordPress tasks and inspiring us about what we can and should accomplish. So I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thanks, Robert. It's been great being on. I really appreciate all your help here.
Did you leave us a quick review on iTunes yet? It's quick and easy. Just go to marketeroftheday.com/iTunes, click the View in iTunes button, and we would be very grateful.